Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to day 3 of the 2022 Region 9 and 10 State and Territory TANF Technical Assistance Meeting. Reorient, Reset, and Rise. Today we are going to rise with some fantastic presentations on the use of technology to create a human-centered TANF, and we've got a fantastic inspirational speaker for you today. I want to remind you all, encourage you all to come onto camera if you're comfortable doing so we can see your beautiful faces. Please remember to keep your mic on mute unless asking a question or providing a comment during the Q&A sessions. We do encourage you to engage with the presenters and with us. Please feel free to use the chat to comment, to ask questions, and to let us know if you're having technical difficulties. Hello, Christine from Guam. Thank you so much for joining us so early. My name is Julie Fong. I'm the Region 9 TANF Program Manager, for those of you who don't know me, and I welcome you on behalf of the Region 9 and 10 TANF teams. Hi, Justin. Good to have you here. Next slide, please. Just do a quick overview. Again, we're going to start off with a session about using technology to create a human-centered TANF. We have amazing facilitator, Justin King. We'll end the day today with an inspirational speaker, Dr. Terry Horton, and then a quick wrap up and debrief. We will close at the end of the day with a survey, so please be sure to fill that out at the end of the session. And it's not on the agenda, but we're going to go ahead and add a brief break between the two sessions, a 5 to 7 minute break. So about 2:35, we will go ahead and take a quick break and then rejoin for our last session today. Next slide, please. The meeting, a reminder, the meeting agenda, speaker bios, and PowerPoints are available on the Bizzabo website. If you're having trouble, a few people have reported trouble with the link. Let us know so that we can provide you a new link. Maybe we can put that in the chat right now. Again, please remain mute unless you are engaging in a question or would like to make a comment. We'd also appreciate it if you could rename yourself so we know who you are in the little boxes here on Zoom. Captions are available by clicking more and then show subtitle, which is at the bottom of your screen in the menu list. You're welcome to submit questions via the chat or when we open it up for questions to unmute yourself, raise your hand, and we will call on you. If you do need technical support, please don't hesitate to ask us, send us a message in the chat box, and tech support will assist. We've got 2 great tech supports here with us from Zoom. So now I'd like to open us up to our first session, using technology to create a human-centered TANF. This session will feature a brief overview of human-centered technology by Justin King, who is also our facilitator. Justin is a policy director at Propel. It's a company that is focused on modern, respectful, effective technology that helps low-income Americans to improve their financial health. And after Justin presents, his presentation will be followed by Christina Meza, who is the chief for the CalWorks and Family Resilience Branch for the California Department of Social Services. We have the great honor to work with Christina and her team. And then Christina will be followed by Angie Johnson, who's the Deputy Administrator for the Idaho Department of Health. Justin, I'm going to pass the mic to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks, everybody, for having me. It really is. It's just a super pleasure for me to be here. I'm really looking forward to sharing with you some of the work I've been doing and also just taking this opportunity to learn more about the work that's happening out in Regions 9 and 10. Really, really excited to hear from Christina and Angie about the work that they and their teams are leading. Can we move off the title slide for a second? And so we want to kick off with a poll here to sort of find out where folks are. Here's our first poll question. Where would you rate your state in using technology to create more human-centered TANF programs? You only get one choice here. And I'd urge you to be honest here. I don't think if everybody comes in with excellent, we're going to check and see if this poll was rigged. Because I know that folks have a variety of experiences. Everybody as an individual and as a member of a team is traveling a journey with both their relationship to technology and policy and program implementation. Where's your state along those lines? I'm gonna X out. Well, let me see here. I'm gonna answer other priorities for me because I don't want to skew the poll. How are we doing? Oh, this is great. I love the honest answers. Thank you, everybody, so much. Nobody said they were doing excellent, so hopefully I didn't scare anybody off of that. 27% of folks say they're doing good, and there's 73% of the audience who says we want to do it, we're just trying to get there. And I've got to be honest, like that seems really reflective of my experience trying to study how technology is changing the implementation and usage of the safety net. Thanks, everybody, for taking time to do that. We have another poll question that we'll get to later, but I think that was a really good way to kick us off. Let me do a little bit more introduction for me. My name is Justin King. As Julie said earlier, I'm the policy director at a company called Propel. I think my first qualification for being here and talking to you is actually that both of my parents are state government employees. And they are very honest. They're very hardworking. They did their work with a lot of like humility and integrity. And I don't want to just like fluff them because they are remarkable and wonderful people. But I want to use that just to say, I know how hard you guys work. And I know that you're not always appreciated by the public and by society at large in the work that you do. So as the son of two state government employees, thank you for the work that you do. It really, really matters. And thank you for the way in which you do it. Dealing with the restrictions of navigating state government and federal government's weirdness and trying to sort of give people the best service that you can is not an easy circle to square. But I appreciate how hard everyone here works to do it. So thank you very much. So I started my career in public policy actually working in the US Senate. I sort of worked my way up working for the senator from my home state of Vermont, a man who's retired and passed away since, named Jim Jeffords, who was a super person to work for. And I was really fortunate to work for him for 1,000 reasons. But among those reasons, he served on the Health and Education Committee, which in the US Senate is called the HELP Committee. And he served on the Finance Committee, which is the committee that oversees, between those two committees, they oversee most of the human services programs that are authorized at the federal level. And finance in particular oversees TANF. And so as a young staffer, one of my first major responsibilities was trying to represent him and the state's interests on the Finance Committee as we worked to reauthorize TANF. We started that process in 2003. And we finished it as part of a Deficit Reduction Act in 2005. So I have some deep TANF roots from way back in the day. And it's a long time gone since 2005. But the rest of my career, since when I moved out of the Senate, has been trying to work in public policy in that place where household economic security meets the safety net. And so I've done financial security policy work for many years since at a think tank in Washington, D.C. called New America, where I worked in the asset building program for many years. And then the last several years before coming to Propel, I was at the Aspen Institute in the financial security program. So I spent, the biggest chunk of the last 2 decades looking at the way government does and doesn't help low-income families build their financial security and trying to help those systems work a little bit better from the outside. So that's me a little bit and my background. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to sort of broaden my scope and direct my attention a little bit. And one of the things I got really interested in and started studying more kind of independently at first, and then I transitioned to making this more of my professional focus, was studying the ways in which technology was transforming the safety net. I started that journey in about 2017. That's part of the reason why I went to work at the Aspen Institute Financial Security Program for a few years, to really have an opportunity to understand how is technology transforming the safety net, who is leading that transformation, what are the methods that they're using, and what are the impacts of that. And so one of the things I'd like to do today is share some of that research with you and also share a little bit with you about where I'm working now. Can we go ahead and move to the next slide, please? So I work at a company now, as Julie said. This is 3 months into working at a company called Propel. And I often tell people the last time I worked at a company, I was 22 and it was a restaurant. So this is a very, very different challenge for me, but so far so good. I'm really enjoying it. Propel is a company that builds modern, respectful, effective technology that helps Americans with low incomes improve their financial health. That's the goal. Okay. So what does that look like? Can we move to the next slide, please? Our core product is a smartphone app, and it's a smartphone app called Providers. And our goal in creating Providers is to help people who use it get through the month every month. It's the only app available where users can manage their public benefits and their debit and banking balances side by side. So the core functionality of the Providers app is that it lets people check the balances on their EBT cards. When Jimmy Chen, who founded Propel, founded the company, he was doing research on low-income Americans and trying to figure out how he might use his skills and tech background to help them. So he spent time going to the grocery store with people who used SNAP cards, right? Used EBT cards to spend their SNAP benefits. And one of the patterns that he noticed is that he would go with people and first thing they would do when they got to the grocery store is they would buy a banana. And he saw this happen more than once, enough that he just had to ask people, I'm so sorry, why do you buy a banana when you get to the grocery store? And they all told him the same thing. So, well, the receipt has the balance on it. And the only other way I can get my balance is by navigating a phone tree where I have to put in the 16-digit card number and remember my PIN, and it's just much easier to buy a banana. And I don't think I've heard him say this before. He's probably not this cheesy, but I'll say it. It is bananas that people had to buy a banana to find out what their SNAP balance was. And there's sort of like the problem that's at the core of the Providers app, right? People should know how much money they have on their SNAP card easily so that they can make the best decisions for themselves. And so in addition to helping people to check their SNAP balance in a number of states, we also allow people to check the balance on their TANF EBT card. Not every state has a TANF EBT card. You know this. I don't have to tell you this. We don't work with EPC systems very well, but we do with state EBT systems. And we also offer a free debit card. So people can receive their labor income on the debit card. They can receive their SNAP and EBT income on those cards, and they can manage that money in one place, which is the Providers app. So I think that's the background there. And if we can move to the next slide, what we found is that this is very important information for people in and of itself, and it's also the kind of information that is a great anchor for delivering other really useful and valuable information to people. So the core of the app is the balance checking function, and my supposition, you can quote me in 5 years or whatever, is that this will remain the core of the Providers app for a long time to come. But we've built other services to help people better manage their money and make ends meet every month around that core balance checking function. When the pandemic happened, we recognized one thing that was happening was that the pace of policy change expedited. Things started happening really, really quickly. And it was really hard for policy experts to really keep track of all of the new programs and expanded benefits amounts and emergency allotments and waived rules, let alone, folks who are, struggling to survive the pandemic amidst all the chaos that was happening then. So we created what we call Benefits Hub, which is a space inside the app for the distribution of clear and actionable information about what's new and what's changing with people's benefits. A really clear example of this is the Pandemic EBT or PEBT program, right? Some states have been approved for PEBT for 2022. Some states haven't. The states that have been approved are distributing their PEBT funds under different rules at different times. And it's really important for people to know when they can expect those deposits, whether they're going to get them, if there's a delay. And so the Benefits Hub is a tool that we use to keep people up to date on what's going on with benefits that they may be eligible for. And that space inside our app, it gets a ton of traffic. It gets 3 million visits a month. So it's information that's clear and actionable is extremely valuable to people navigating public benefits. The other things that the other core functions that we offer around balance checking and Benefits Hub, we offer job search, and then we offer the opportunity for people to save money. And so with the money saving elements of it, one thing we've done recently is we partnered with the White House. This is a little bit of a off center for us, but I think it's a good example of what SAVE looks like for us. The White House rolled out a new program called the Affordable Connectivity Program, which creates a subsidy that allows people to purchase broadband for their home at a reduced rate. And the way the subsidy works is that it makes many broadband plans completely free. So it's very, very valuable to folks who may traditionally be part of the digital divide, have very low incomes, and it's hard for them to dedicate the household income necessary to acquire broadband. Very, very valuable program. We've been advertising the Affordable Connectivity Program inside the app as a way for people to save money. And in 3 months, we've connected 600,000 people with the ACP website, right? So there's an offer that appears, here's a way for you to save money. In this instance, this one is branded with White House branding with their permission, so that we want to try and make sure folks know we're looking out for you. You can trust us. These are offers that we feel are best in class, that are companies that are reliable, and that will save you money. And those two last categories, job search and save, that's the business model for Propel, right? We get paid when people get jobs through our job search function. We get paid when people save money by selecting the discounts and offers that we offer them through Save. So that, I think, is a pretty good picture of the app as a whole. Can we move to the next slide? And like I said, this has turned out to have some value for people. The company is 8 years old. Providers is actually a rebrand. When it was first rolled out, the app was called Fresh EBT, but we rebranded a couple years ago, and now more than 5 million people use it every month. We did some research on balance checking before providers and after providers, and what we found is that on average, people would call the phone tree or visit the state Ebt portal and check their balance 3 times a month before they got the provider's app. Once people get the app, they check their balance 18 times a month. There's real value in people knowing how much they have to spend, what's left for them as they try to put food on the table for their families. Those 5 million people are spread across all 50 states and US territories. Effectively at this point, 1 in 4 SNAP households has downloaded this app and uses it to help them manage their benefits better. The demographics of providers users it's not a perfect snapshot of SNAP eligibility. 83% of our users are women. The average providers user is a younger woman with children under 18 in the home. With that said, we serve so many people that we really do serve people from all walks of life. They're urban, they're rural, they're old, they're young. On average, they look a certain way, but in toto, we serve a lot of folks, and we see a lot of folks who have eligibility for other public benefits programs. Even though we're catering to SNAP sort of as the core of the business, 20% of our users also receive SSI or SSDI. And our estimates are a little bit loose here, but 5 to 7% of our users also receive TANF. And that's not to mention other programs that people are often co-eligible for, like WIC, like LIHEAP, and so on and so forth. But you can see, like, we target a very low income demographic. We provide them with a service that they seem to find very valuable. Can we move to the next slide? So as I mentioned earlier, if state Ebt portals, the websites that hold people's financial information, support balance checking and transaction history for TANF, we deliver that information alongside SNAP information. That's not every state, but there are a number of states where we're able to do that really easily. People open the app, we ping the server, we find out how much is left on your SNAP card, how much is left on your TANF EBT card. If you use our debit product, that balance is there as well. And what we find through the survey work that we've done, through the interviews and the focus groups that we do with folks, is that that information gives them a feeling of control, and it helps them to manage their money better than they would be able to do if they were calling the phone tree or buying bananas. Can we move to the next slide? So that we did a study with some academics from Harvard Business School on this question of greater control, right? What happens to people's benefits when they start using this app that tells them? And what we found in conjunction with these academics is that people with access to their balance through the app made their benefits last several days longer every month, right? The typical SNAP beneficiary, the benefits do not make it to the end of the month. They don't actually even make it really close to the end of the month, right? It's about the third week of the month where balances zero out on average. With just the simple power of easy access to information, benefits last about 4% longer on average for folks. And that means that there's more meals supported in those households every month when they have this information easily available to them. We're stretching, expanding, extending out the benefits of the support that people get when they do this. And that impact figure, 4% is 4%. It's, significant. It's not like globe changing, but it's a bigger impact in households that are new to SNAP. It's a bigger impact in households that get larger SNAP allowances, which typically means it's a bigger impact in households with more kids. That's sort of how that comes through. And then if you track people's spending patterns before and after the app, it's a bigger impact in households that were more likely to spend quickly up front. So there's real behavior change that comes, and a feeling of control that comes with this, providing this information. It's one thing that's great, that this is different from my life before, is that we get feedback, right? And it's very nice to put an app on the App Store and the Play Store. It's also terrifying that people rate it. People tell you what they think. And I'm like very, very nervous about this, but also thrilled to say that, like, in general, people really like the experience of this app. And I pulled a couple of very recent comments. These are that I thought related to our users who get TANF on their cards as well as SNAP, right? Love getting my cash and food stamp balance in one place. Great idea. Love the fact that I have an option to combine cards and stop fumbling at the cash register. So we get that feedback all the time, and it turns out, this is sort of, it works for people. It's a value added proposition into their lives. Can we go ahead to the next slide, please? So the Providers app is free to download and use for anyone with an EBT card. I just apparently left the words free to use in there twice on this slide because I really wanted to emphasize them. So I'll say it again, free to use. And it's an example of one new trend that is reshaping the safety net, right? There is a growing trend of market-based consumer technology that is offering value to people in and around the safety net. And so yeah, that is that is the provider's app, and the place that I'm working now builds that, and it's very cool. I want to just dig in on, I think, this idea of feedback just a little bit more. Can we go to the next slide, please? So yeah, the smartphone has changed your life, right? Like, here's a great poll question that we're not going to do, but we should do, is like, name one app that has changed your life. And everybody here pretty much is going to have an answer, and it's going to be a different answer, but the smartphone is revolutionizing our society and the world, and the safety net is no different from that, right? The ability to do remote deposit capture, right? To take a photo of a bank, of a check, and deposit it remotely, that's incredible. And the knock-on effect of that is that no one ever goes into a bank lobby anymore, right? Like, it's not exactly true, but like, we're seeing society be reshaped by this technology. The safety net is no different. Smartphone and digital technology, it's all part of one big trend. And there's things good and bad that are happening around this all at the same time. And as I did my work studying these trends of who's changing the safety net and how, I kept coming up with really the same insight, right? Which is that, yes, technology is transforming the safety net. It is transforming our public programs. But where it's really having impact for the good, for the better, in terms of improving people's lives, what's driving that technological change is the act of listening. It is the act of putting front and center people's feedback and people's experiences as the thing that should guide the steps we take next. And that sounds like impossibly simple. It's really, really hard. It is really hard. It is not an easy thing to do. It is not an easy thing to do well, right? Does anybody remember 5 years ago, the British government had a new deep sea research vessel, and it was the crowning achievement of British environmental technology. And it was going to revolutionize what we know about the deep seas. And they put out to the public the opportunity to name this pioneering vessel of exploration and discovery. And the British people decided to name it Boaty McBoatface. Listening to people is amazing. It's also really hard, and it will not always lead you to the right and the perfect place. So if we can move to the next slide, customer feedback, good and bad, informs everything we do at Propel. These are some recent messages, again, that I think, you read them and they say what they say specifically, then you have to go through the process of figuring out what they mean for you, right? And so I won't read these individually, but what I will say is, like, here's the takeaways from some of the feedback we get. Convenience is a core value. If we make changes that reduce convenience, we're going to pay the price with our customers, because that is so important to them. Extra information can really help. People find it, no offense to folks who run like state TANF websites, people have a hard time understanding what you're trying to tell them. And so I'm sure some folks know that they have put a lot of effort into clear communication and all that sort of stuff. But actionable, concrete, extra information can be very helpful for people. Reducing jargon can be very helpful for people. Also, I talk about this a lot, right? There's bad feedback is a part of the job now for me, which I wasn't always comfortable with. But you have to learn to separate, like, you suck, from I'm mad about this thing that neither of us controls, and I'm going to take it out on you because of that, right? And so people get frustrated and they voice their frustration, and it's critically important to listen to that and to respond to it appropriately, right? And that might mean that there actually are some changes you can make. And it might mean that you just have to empathize and say like, yeah, that sucks. And I'm sorry that that thing happens to you. And if I'm like this close to like cursing or being gauche, I really apologize to everybody. I am who I am. I can't help it. All I can do is apologize for it. And the other great thing about bad feedback is it gives you ideas for improvement. It tells you where to go with this. So that's a little vague and a little bit broad, but that's what I mean by listening shapes what we do at Propel and ways in which the safety net is being transformed overall. A thing that I would like to do now is I want to show a video. And this is a video of one of your compatriots, a woman named Miss Terry Hicks, who works in state government in Louisiana. And in partnership with an organization that some of you may have heard of called Code for America, Louisiana embarked upon a journey of trying to listen and respond to some of their clients as they sought to reform and improve the way that they delivered public benefits in their state. So we're just going to take about, I think, like 6 or 7 minutes to watch this video. It's pretty great. And it honestly touches on some of the things I've talked about here, how important listening is, how hard it is to do, and what that means in the context that you all work in. So if I could stop talking and we could play the video, I think everybody would probably be better off.
Let me bring onto the stage Terry Hicks. She is the Deputy Secretary of Louisiana's Department of Children and Families. Terry.
Bienvenue. In Louisiana, our land is diverse, our ideas are diverse, and our people are diverse. From the original Native American inhabitants to the French, Spanish, Acadians, Africans, from the Yugoslavian oyster harvesters to the Sicilian strawberry farmers, nearly every nation on earth has left its imprint on Louisiana's culture. I love that statement from Governor John Bel Edwards. It describes the rich culture and history of Louisiana. We're a fun people. We're interesting. We love football. We like fishing. We like festivals. And of course, we love Mardi Gras. We really are a strong, resilient, hopeful people, in spite of, and maybe because of, some very difficult circumstances. In Louisiana, nearly 48% of Louisiana households are using safety net services, or are one paycheck away from needing them. 29% of our population are on SNAP. 75% of Louisiana's children are covered by Medicaid. That tells me that our clients are not some distant minority. They are our neighbors. The role of agency executives is to be honest. When we came into governing in 2016, there was a $1.9 billion deficit. The safety net program staff and resources have been cut, and our caseloads were soaring. We also came into very differing views about the role of government in people's lives. We've had to be honest about what role agencies can play in this moment. The truth is, if someone comes to the Department of Children and Family Services hungry, we are not able to feed them today. So we work with our partners like the food banks. So we had to be honest that we're just one piece of a larger safety net. We've had to be honest about our information services system challenges. The administration has been building a statewide, interdepartmental enterprise architecture. We've been trying to retire all of the legacy systems, and currently they're integrating the eligibility systems for Medicaid, SNAP, and TANF. You can probably guess that this change in staff and support makes everything tricky. The last thing we had to be honest with is how we treat our people. When they're coming to us in their most vulnerable state, do they feel helped and respected? We need to really figure out how to meet people where they are. Enter Code for America. We really had to figure out before doing anything else if Code for America was actually legit. It took us a little while, but once we did, we've been extremely excited to work with them. We saw it as an opportunity to further our desire to deliver client-focused services. The engagement includes 4 of our agencies: the Governor's Office, the Department of Children and Family Services, the Department of Health, and our Office of Technology Services. The first component of the work I was very excited about. It was to map the clients' and staff's experiences relative to our service delivery. Code for America brought us their voices. We heard that the SNAP program is really important to families. We heard that many SNAP families have to start over again in 6 months. We heard that the clients really do want to help people in a really special way. When I think about a single mom of 3 saying these words right after saying, I can't get by without these benefits, but I have to start over every 6 months, it helped me to realize we need to fix this. We heard the voices, we reviewed the data. In 1 month, more than 12,000 cases were closed because of process reasons. Someone missed an appointment. They failed to give us a document that we needed. Loss of benefits causes household instability, frustration, and a lot of anxiety for those who are already in hardship. They're already hurting. And the other thing is that it's seriously inefficient for staff. This is churn. Churn is not new. But when we heard the voices and we put the data together, we realized that we need to fix this. With Code for America's help, what we realized is there may be an actual new approach to this, that we can fix this. States do need to test out new ways to understand what the client experiences and perspectives are. This engagement allowed Louisiana to recognize our clients' phones as their lifelines. Everybody's texting. You guys are texting. Some of you are texting now. My kids are texting. Our clients are texting. I needed a reminder to get here today. Did you need a reminder to get here today? Our state steering committee decided on the LaMessage pilot. The idea is that timely, specific text reminders will help clients maintain their much-needed benefits and reduce churn. I have to tell you, the early results are promising. For the Department of Health's WIC clients in the pilot, we're seeing appointment show rates increasing by 65%. Clients are also proactively rescheduling their appointments at an almost 25% rate. Can you imagine the impact this is having on the clinics, managing time and resources? Well, I'm very excited because this month, some of our SNAP and TANF clients started receiving also reminders through text. We believe the text reminders will really work. The WIC data gives us a lot of hope that this simple reminder could grant some stability to a household that might otherwise lose benefits and cut down on the casework and reduce the churn. DCFS employees, I believe, are the best in the business. They are passionate and compassionate. Those that have been a part of the pilot are super excited about what they think it will bring to their mission. They want to improve clients' lives. They want better results. They want to treat the clients with dignity and respect. We speak in our administration about a breeze of hope, driving change as mighty as the Mississippi. We are a state government as hopeful as our people are. That's what they deserve. We are glad that the breeze blew in Code for America to help us do better by the state. We're so excited about you guys being a part of it too. Come join us in Louisiana. I'd like
I'm still here, I promise. Sorry, it took me a second to get off mute. Okay, first things first, that was awesome. And second, I mispronounced Miss Rick's name. I said Terry Hicks earlier. That was Miss Terry Ricks from Louisiana. And I love that story because it touches on, I think, so much of what each of you is going through, right? That you want to make progress. You don't quite know who to trust in doing that. It's hard to do it on your own. And so much of that came through there. One of the other things that really strikes me about that story that I think is really important to put front and center, when people talk about human-centered design and talk about listening, I think very commonly, many people's head assumes that this means the clients must be listened to. And that's right, but it is a terrible mistake if the story stops there. The caseworkers and everyone who interacts on the inside with the systems that you're trying to improve are essential to listen to as well, right? I mean, I've spent time in casework offices, and you see folks with like elaborate sets of Post-it notes because the Post-it notes have the real information they need. The computer screen does not, will not, cannot, right? And so there's just a tremendous amount of learning that happens, and it's critical to remember that that you all and your teams are essential stakeholders in any listening exercise that goes forward. One thing that Ms. Ricks didn't touch on that I want to make sure to center as well, it's really, really, this is hard stuff to do. It's hard stuff to do well. It takes time, it takes money, it takes resources. There are costs to doing it, and there are costs to not doing it. And I just want to take a moment to sort of center this, like, nobody from Michigan is here, are they? I know they're not in the region. I just like, Michigan is sort of an extraordinary state to study because it has maybe covered more ground than any other state in trying to do technological transformation, right? Like a lot of folks, Michigan thought their first instinct when sort of like data-driven program implementation came to them was that they could use data-driven mechanisms to identify fraud in UI and save themselves lots of money, right? And I won't go into all the details here. It's a much longer story than I have time for, but it's still in the news. This is 10, 12 years ago. And the data-driven automated system for fraud detection, accidentally or inappropriately flagged tens of thousands of people for UI fraud, drove more than 1,000 families into bankruptcy because of the penalties that were applied to them. This is 10 years ago, mind you, right? And last week, Michigan Supreme Court ruled that those families have standing and the ability to sue the state for the damages that were done to them, right? So this is like a 10-year journey of people building systems that they thought met the state's needs without considering and testing and focusing on the impact on users, put that system into place, and everyone is worse off for it, right? And so that's one of there are costs to not listening, I think, is one of the things I've discovered as I've studied this space and wanted to lift up for you as well. So this is part of my research I did while I was at the Aspen Institute Financial Security Program. I found there were like 5 kinds of developments that were being put into place, right? And these range across the private sector and the public sector, and at times in mixed fashion. But this is sort of like the 5 broad kinds of tools that I saw being implemented and developed that were having impact when I was doing this research for Aspen. So the first one is that they're connectors, right? Just the simple ability to tell people, you need help, here's how you can get help in your area. And there are really powerful tools that have been built now that are national in scope, where you can say, I live in this zip code, in this state, and I need help getting food on the table. And they will tell you, like, here are the food banks, here's the state SNAP office, here are all the resources that can help you with that. And so there's a proliferation of these connector tools that make it easier to bridge the gap between people that have resources to give and people that need resources. That is, I think, a very promising development. That can be a little bit overwhelming to navigate that at points, but there's technology that is making information so much easier to access and bridging some of those divides. And I think that is a very promising trend for us. The other thing I've seen a lot of proliferation on, and some of you may have some experience with this, is the development of screeners. Screeners are tools that allow people to pretty quickly determine or estimate whether or not they're eligible for public assistance programs. It's much easier now to find out if you're eligible than it used to be. And you don't have to go through the whole process, right? You just provide essential information and it tells you, yeah, you're pretty much likely to be eligible. And then that empowers people to complete the process that might be very daunting to them otherwise. Separate from screeners, and perhaps I think more impactful, are enrollers, right? These are reforms that support individuals through the process of applying for and receiving benefits. And to a certain extent, this is what Ms. Ricks was talking about in Louisiana, right? They're creating a common application that covers SNAP and Medicaid and TANF in Louisiana, and doing that in a way that is easy for people to navigate is a very challenging exercise, but it's also one that can have huge upsides. I'll talk a little bit more about some promising enrollers in a few minutes. And then those are all pre-approval benefits, right? Pre-approval improvements. There's also innovations that are happening that apply to people who have been approved for and are receiving benefits. And one is what I've called advisors, right? These is tools that provide information to help people better manage their resources, irrespective of the benefit they're receiving, right? This could be budget planning tools. It could be access to educational modules. There's a lot of advice on how to sort of best navigate your situation that can be provided to folks in this context that's not necessarily restricted to the benefit that they're receiving. The counterpoint to that is benefit managers, and this is sort of the category that Propel and Providers fits into, right? These are tools that improve people's interaction with their benefits through technology platforms, right? The EBT processor websites aren't very friendly. The phone trees aren't very friendly. Propel steps in and says, we're going to get you information that is your information that you're entitled to. It's going to make it easier for you to manage those benefits through that interface. So that is like 5 broad categories of innovation that we're seeing. I see Julie's hand up, and I would love to answer a question. Julie?
I'm sorry, Justin, I didn't clarify this with you. Would you like us to hold questions, or would you like us to interject and ask questions as they come up?
I love a question as they come up. What have we got?
Okay, so Christine from Guam has asked about, I think this is in relation to the Propel product, but she's asking the customer feedback feature. Is a report created or shared with states so that we can improve services based on customer feedback? And question number 2, does the app have a feature that shares information with users that shows their trend in spending and what they're spending on?
Those are great questions. I'll take them in order. That sounds great. Thank you, Christine, for asking those questions. We do supply information to states when they request it of us, and we're able to meet the request. We don't have a formalized system for sort of like for regular reporting to states, but people are curious about how we can help. They also sometimes are concerned that we might be messing up their game a little bit. And so we just try the best we can to make sure that, like, if we can answer questions that you have, we want to support states in doing that. And the second one, does the app have a feature that shares information with users that shows their trend in spending, but also what they're spending on? So we show the transaction history of the card, right? So you can look and see okay, I went to Target, I went to Walmart, I went to Costco, and this is how much I spent. We don't trend analyze that data, but we do provide it to people. And one of the ways in which that turns out to be really useful for folks is it's a fraud detection measure for them, right? People can look on the app and then be like, I am not in Texas. And it's unfortunate that, there's that fraud has already occurred. And for the most part, people aren't eligible to get reimbursed because of sort of like big picture rules in the program. But it's really essential for people to know, like, oh, shoot, something weird has happened here and I need to put a stop to it, right? Put a lock on that card, file a police report, all that sort of stuff. We did an experiment in the past where we offered up some budgeting tools for folks or budgeting opportunities for folks. And what we heard mostly from folks in feedback to that was that they really don't like the sort of like canned educational lessons. They feel depersonalized. They don't meet people's needs very much. And they also don't respect that, like, folks know way more about their finances than we or somebody else will. I love the idea that you just raised of a trend analysis tool in spending, but we don't offer that feature. I'm going to take it back to the product team, however. Okay, great. Let's move on to the next slide. And if there are more questions, let's save them till a little bit later, because there are other presenters who've just been sitting in the past. I want to go a little bit quickly through like a couple of examples of technological innovation that I think are really, really exciting. One is in Minnesota. It's called MN Benefits. And again, this is with the organization that Miss Ricks talked about, Code for America. They did a ranking of how long it took people to complete applications for core safety net programs and whether and how those were online and integrated. And Minnesota came in last. It took the longest. It was like 90 minutes to do a Medicaid or a SNAP application. And so Minnesota took that very seriously, and they partnered with Code for America, and they have this new system that is now statewide called MN Benefits. And MN Benefits now is an online application that takes people on average 13 minutes to finish, and it checks their eligibility for 9 separate benefits. It is an extraordinary example of what is possible when technology and customer service are put to the fore, listening is put to the fore, and also multiple agencies work together to try and advance a vision of service. There's a company called Steady that works a lot with gig workers. And when the pandemic hit, one of the experiences that Steady folks heard about is from gig workers who were trying to apply for the new UI programs. And it's very, very difficult if you're a gig worker who has, like, multiple employers, right? You might drive for both Lyft and Uber, right? In addition to other gigs on the side. It was very difficult for them to capture and transmit that information to the state UI office to claim eligibility. What Steady did, because they work on the back ends of all of those gig employers, is they created an automated income verification tool, the automated UI across all of someone's employers. And the impact of that is that they reduced the processing time inside state government for UI claims from 60 minutes on average to 5 minutes on average. And 35% of the applications that they submitted were able to be automatically verified. It's a fascinating program that I think has real potential to scale in other places around the country. The third example I'll talk about here is an organization that's based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, called Benefits Data Trust. They run call centers to help people get connected to benefits, but they also work with states to do data matching and proactive outreach. What do I mean when I say that? You have a lot of information about your TANF clients, right? Maybe some of you are in Cat-L states, and you are able to connect them to other programs that they might be eligible for. Data matching is that process of taking all the information you have about somebody and then running it through checks with other agencies to find out, we think they're eligible for this, this, and this as well. And so Benefits Data Trust has become a bit of an expert in working with states to do data matching and then reaching out proactively to people to say, hey, listen, you're on SNAP in this state. We think you're eligible for Medicaid and LIHEAP. If you'd like to know more, reply to this text and we will connect you in a way that helps. They did an experiment with this that was evaluated pretty intensely on WIC, and in one state, they increased WIC enrollment by more than 90%. That might be a little bit scary for some of you. You might not want to increase your enrollment by 90% in one fell swoop, but there's incredible potential in data matching. There's incredible potential in proactively reaching out to folks to say, hey, we think we can serve you better. Benefits Data Trust is really leading in that way. Let me kick to my next slide because I think I'm taking up too much time. This is an incredible moment to be doing this kind of work because there's resources out there to help you do this, okay? And I can talk more about this later because I want to kind of make space for our state partners to have there. But there's learning opportunities. The Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation is a center at Georgetown University that's dedicated to studying how technology is transforming government. They have a unit that's dedicated to studying safety net transformation, and they, do incredible work assembling and sharing knowledge that's based on this space. Sevilla is another nonprofit that does this kind of work, that sort of famously did this benefits enrollment transformation in Michigan that has been very, very successful. They're not only are they doing the work that they're doing individually with certain states, I believe they're working with Washington State now. They also are running learning courses, what they're calling Sevilla Practica, where they're teaching courses on human-centered design to state employees and others who are interested. U.S. Digital Response is this incredible organization that was created during the pandemic that leverages tech experts who will volunteer and offer their services pro bono to state agencies to complete tech improvement projects. And they sort of like listen to whoever wants to help and figure out how they can help. 18F is similarly a digital transformation consultancy, but one that is housed inside the federal government and that is available as a partner to state agencies who want to do digital transformation projects. And the other thing about this moment that I think is really exciting is that there's actually money on the table. The TANF administrators, you're used to everyone coming to you and being like, you've got money, give it to us. The American Rescue Plan has put in tremendous amounts of money on the table for modernization and transformation. And this is also a moment where philanthropy has stepped up and put big dollars on the table that are available for you to pursue partnerships with nonprofits like Code for America, who just got $100 million to partner with states to do this kind of work. So there's real resources on the table. There's real partnership and learning opportunities. I'll stop talking for a little bit there. I want to give Christina Mesa the opportunity to talk about what they're doing in California to transform their system. Thanks for bearing with me for so long, everybody. I'll talk more later, but I want to stop now and turn it over to Christina. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
All right. Thank you so much, Justin. That was great and a good segue too into some of the areas that we get to highlight here in California. Good afternoon, everyone. So excited to be here today. Christina Mesa, and I'm the chief of the CalWorks and Family Resilience Branch, which is our TANF program here in California. To get us started, if we can go to the next slide, going to take you along a little bit of a journey in California and where we've kind of integrated this human-centered design and approach to changing in the space of technology, as well as how we use data-informed practices. And before I dive into this, I just want to flag, especially as Justin was sharing towards the end there, we are just getting ready to launch our first guaranteed income program at the state level. Our guaranteed income program gives us a unique opportunity to really look at and evaluate how folks launch these types of benefit programs along with those benefit platforms. I know Steady is a big player here in California, which you highlighted, Justin, along with many other platforms that are coming out in this space, in addition to the work that Code for America is doing in California. So really excited to see how these pilots kind of come about here in California and the types of different platforms they use and what we can do in that space to inform our evaluation. So more to come on that in the future. But for today's presentation, as I mentioned, I'm going to take you along a little bit of a journey. We'll share a little bit of background of how we're structured here in California, along with a caveat that, yes, we use a lot of acronyms. We like to change the name of everything here in California. So I'll give a little bit of information and background to that extent. And then want to spend some time talking about human-centered design in Cal-OAR and how we refocused outcomes in our state TANF program, and how that then informs some of the work that we're able to do in our outreach space. And going to spend most of our time speaking to some of the outreach initiatives, because we were able to really leverage the power of doing text messaging in different spaces above and beyond just supporting the application process for our clients. So that will be where the heavy emphasis of our presentation will be, and then sharing a few other initiatives that we're moving forward in the state as well. One being Benefits Cal, which is our new online application tool that is much more intuitive than what folks have used before. And then the work that we're doing in the space of developing the Statewide Verification Hub, which is a tool that will be available in just a few years here in California as well. With that, if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so to kick us off on background, want to share and highlight the mission that we have here at the California Department of Social Services. Mentioned this yesterday if folks were participating in our share out, but here at CDSS, California Department of Social Services, while we are a state oversight entity of our TANF programs, all TANF programs are administered at our 58 counties independently. So essentially we have 58 different programs that are being operated across the state. We here at CDSS and in our program oversee the policy development and some of the guidance that goes out to those counties to implement their local programs. If we can go to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, you'll hear some different naming conventions that we use here in California. So our programs reside within, yes, CDSS, but we are a part of the Family Engagement and Empowerment Division, which is home to the 4 programs that you see here on this slide. One being CalWorks, which is our TANF program here in California. It is the California Work and Opportunity and Responsibility to Kids program. We also operate and oversee the CalFresh program, which is California's SNAP program. We are out now recently, just as of last July, home to the Child and Adult Care Food program. And starting just this year, we just launched the request for application. So just getting ready to fund pilots, now home to the Guaranteed Income pilot program that I mentioned at the top of our presentation. So quite a bit happens within our division. All of us work very closely together to inform county practices and policies. And hopefully this helps visualize some of the pieces that we're going to speak to later on in the presentation as well. Next slide. So as I mentioned, taking you along a little bit of a journey, and want to start first with something that launched just last July. So we're wrapping up our first year, and that is our CalWorks Outcome and Accountability Review process, otherwise known as Cal-OAR. At the highest level, Cal-OAR is about leveraging technology and data to help improve service delivery for clients. Cal-OAR in and of itself, as it's defined, is a local data-driven program management system that helps facilitate continuous quality improvement, or CQI. And of course, we coined that as Cal-CQI here in CalWorks for our CalWorks programs by collecting, analyzing, and then disseminating outcomes and best practices for our programs across all of our counties. Our Cal-OAR or CQI cycle consists of 3 core components, one being performance indicators, and then the other 2 components are actually what comprise our CQI process within Cal-OAR, and that is our County CalWorks Self-Assessment, our Cal-CSA practice, and then our CalWorks System Improvement Plan, or SIP. What you see to the right is a visual representation of that second part that I just mentioned, that CQI process. So it's inclusive of the Cal-CSA and the Cal-SIP, and then some of the steps that happen in between with our county partners to help inform and drive that CQI process. Cal-OAR is a 5-year cycle. So as I mentioned, we are just wrapping up our first year of our first 5-year cycle for Cal-OAR, and really excited about some of the findings and support that we are able to derive from this first year. but more to come as it moves on through the next 4 years of this first cycle. In the next slide, what you'll see, if we could go to the next slide, please, thank you. As we kind of worked with our county partners and our clients to very much use that user-centered design approach to developing Cal-OAR metrics and outcomes, we were able to create what you see here, which are the different measures within Cal-OAR that we use to determine whether or not a program is achieving successful outcomes for our families. Very much a focus on a whole family approach to service delivery. And the intent really is to drive away from some of the traditional practices of focusing solely on work participation rate. So you'll see different areas that we look at, things like participant engagement, which is inclusive of several different components, things like sanction rate, engagement rate, sanction resolution, and some pieces that we're able to derive from our online appraisal practices. We also look at participation, which is separate from participant engagement. We have a heavy emphasis on barrier removal as a component that we look at. We also look at employment outcomes alongside that barrier removal because we see both as being equally important. We also look at family and child well-being measures, as well as education attainment, service delivery, and other components as well. All of these resources can be found online, so happy to share that out. Part of what we are able to do with some of these performance metrics is we're able to inform public-facing data dashboard, which I have a snapshot that you all see in just a couple of seconds. But that's really intended to look at data to help inform that system improvement plan that the counties are responsible for developing. And we don't necessarily just leave counties with the data and the assignment of developing that plan. We have a significant breadth of resources that are available online as well. Folks are interested, ranging from data toolkits, engagement toolkits, lifting up best practices that we were able to use to inform the design of Cal-OAR from our county partners, as well as in those conversations and communications with our clients to inform this process. We have instruction manuals for those counties that are starting from scratch. We have a logic model that we designed with all of our stakeholders and partners, as well as several different tutorials, including a video tutorial of how to navigate our online data dashboard for Cal-OAR. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see a little snapshot of what that data dashboard looks like. And so what you see here are the different components that you can navigate and look at the county level data for each of these different measurements that you saw in just a couple of slides previous to this one. And as you scroll over each of these different components, you can actually see where they match up to each of the performance measures that were listed in the chart before. So really easy to navigate, really helpful for counties to kind of see where they sit in a certain area in comparison to the state. And really helpful for our clients as well, who are supporting still the process of implementing Cal-OAR, navigating and informing the county where they would like to see improvement and have that inform that system improvement plan as well. So all of Cal-OAR essentially was designed at with that user-centered design at the center of the work to establish and design the framework. If we can go to the next slide, moving from Cal-OAR, we'll touch on Cal-OAR in just a little bit, but we've also been able to support the launch of several different outreach strategies for our TANF clients. The way that we've been able to do it was, first, we were able to receive some funds through philanthropy. So Justin is right, there are a lot of opportunities to support the work in this space with our philanthropy partners. And so we were able to secure some funds to procure a tool called OnSolve, which allows us to do direct client messaging to all of our CalWorks and our CalFresh clients. So that's TANF and SNAP, which is quite a bit of a reach for what we would be able to achieve with outreach. And it also helped us map out what we were able to do in at least that first year of conducting statewide outreach initiatives that really leverage the client messaging and text messaging engagement of the folks that we serve. So there are different layers within OnSolve that we're able to use to do this type of messaging. One is, of course, the direct messaging that is usually a text or voice message that goes directly out to our clients who have already opted in to receive those types of messages. We're also able to send out emails to all of our clients as well if they've opted in to receive that type of correspondence. But in addition to that, we could also conduct surveys and share out links to different materials and resources and track engagement based on how many and the rates in which folks actually click on some of those links. In partnership with our friends at the California Policy Lab, which is an entity that works and operates in partnership with the with both UC Berkeley and UCLA, they were able to work with behavior scientists to navigate what types of outreach we conduct result in the best levels of engagement. And so I'll share a little bit on what the results were able to show us in some of the outreach initiatives we were able to launch around tax outreach. Before we dig into tax outreach, if we could go to the next slide, I also want to highlight something that we mentioned during our presentation yesterday, and that is the outreach strategy to get all of our TANF recipients access to free state park passes. We have over 200 beautiful state parks here in California. You saw in our Cal-OAR data metrics, we are very much whole family focused in our approach to reducing barriers for the family, and find this as a component that is very much in alignment with the goals that we have within our Cal-OAR framework. And we were able to work in partnership with the governor's office, the first partner's office, as well as the Department of California State Parks to make those passes more accessible to our clients and free. We did this through that outreach strategy that we highlighted in the last slide. So we were able to actually message all of our CalWorks recipients and let them know that this park pass is available. We were able to build basically an online application tool that they could click. We could track engagement based on the messaging strategies we were able to launch, and then do all of the validation on the back end. Since we knew, right, based on the phone number and the client, who that person was, to validate that they were eligible to receive that park pass. So again, able to do this all in a virtual environment. And so far, the number on there is a little off. In the last couple of weeks, we increased that number. We've got 17,000 park passes out to CalWorks families, which is pretty incredible. Last year, in the entirety of a year, and park passes weren't free, so folks actually had to pay for park passes, which added a layer barrier, and they had to go in person to get the park pass. We were at most sending out about 3,000 passes. So in just a few weeks of doing outreach, it's just showing the benefit of these types of strategies, the benefit of being able to message and leverage that text messaging tool, and being able to track some of the engagement strategies as well, as folks actually click on the materials that we're sending out. Next slide. This is just a quick little process of what it looks like on the back end, what we were able to create to get folks their park passes, but it's a visual representation of what I just described. Next slide, please. All right, as mentioned earlier, we definitely designed Cal-OAR with our clients at the center of just designing the cycle itself, but as part of the system improvement plan, counties are required to incorporate results from client satisfaction surveys. So using that same OnSolve tool, we've been able to message and send out surveys directly to our clients to gather feedback and then share that feedback to our county partners to then inform their system improvement plan. So just another way outside of traditional practices of how you can leverage messaging to garner further engagement with our clients and to inform some of the work that we're doing within CQI, or continuous quality improvement. Next slide. I also mentioned earlier that we were able to work with our partners over at the California Policy Lab to track behavioral engagement with some of our outreach strategies, especially in the tax filing space. And this is where we were able to get a little bit more creative with our messaging strategies. We were able to work closely with Code for America to have folks engage with their non-filer tool, their Get Your Refund tool that they created. And then we were able to actually track of our participants who we messaged, how many actually engaged with the Get Your Refund tool, and what the dollar amount was for those that actually completed their refunds and were able to get some tax returns. So I'll share some of that data. But to back up a little bit, what we were able to do was look at our CalWorks and CalFresh populations, so TANF and SNAP, and identify who had not yet filed taxes based on a data sharing agreement that we were able to get with our franchise tax board partners. And then with that, we were able to actually do targeted outreach to those recipients that had not yet filed their taxes to encourage them to engage, to file their taxes and get access to those critical economic supports that were available for into many of the families that we received. There's a little snapshot here of how many messages we were able to send out. So we sent out about 235,000 text messages to our recipients who opted in to receive SSM messages. And then our initial results of those messages ended up being about 400,000 back in total refund dollars to our clients. We were able to do an additional layer of tax outreach, and in total, I believe we're at $2.5 million in tax returns going back to our families just from doing this outreach. So it goes to show when you're able to do a little bit on the innovation side around targeted outreach and that targeted messaging. And then we had, of course, the folks over at CPL engaging, our measuring engagement and tweaking our messages to be best catered to clients to ensure that we were maximizing engagement as well. That it actually results in fiscal returns, which is pretty cool to see. Next slide is just a contact slide. If folks are interested in some of the other work that we're getting ready to launch in this outreach space using the OnSolve tool, or just interested in the tool that we were able to leverage, we have contact information here. So you could email us directly at calworksoutreach@dss.ca.gov. And then we've got a website for our statewide outreach initiatives linked up as well. Next slide. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes talking about a couple of new initiatives that we're launching in California. So this is separate and apart from some of the outreach strategies, but definitely integrate some of that user-centered design and how we were able to develop these different tools. So the first is Benefits Cal. Benefits Cal is a new improved experience to help folks apply for and manage benefits. Folks can use the tool to apply for CalFresh, CalWorks, our Medi-Cal program here in California, as well as general relief and disaster SNAP. And the tool itself is intended to be more engaging. We, in the design that went behind developing the tool, was all based on our stakeholders' needs and motivations. We were able to establish design guiding principles to help drive decisions and solutions in actually developing the tool. So what that means is there were different guiding principles that were established in partnership with those stakeholders, one being empathetic and conversational. So this is intending that this application process starts by asking the customer's name. They then personalize questions catered to that person based on that name that was provided, and as well as the use of conditional logic to help show content based on the customer situation and needs. The tool also used a guiding principle around inclusivity of diversity and wanted to ensure that it promoted equity. So the system itself is accessible to everyone. It's translated into 20 different languages, which is our threshold here in California. There are no gendered pronouns used. There is a humanization of persons with disabilities, as well as those that are experiencing homelessness. The language is adjusted to 6th grade reading levels to help support all readers of all levels. And the tool itself is also ADA accessible. It integrates those standards to help drive visual and interactive designs throughout the application process. The tool itself is also is simple and intuitive, which is the third guiding principle. One question at a time within the frame that the applicant is seeing as they are experiencing the application process. There's white space, as you can see in the picture here, around clickable elements. There's large input fields and buttons. There's larger font sizes. There's consistency and repetition in some of the screen patterns to make it easy to follow and flow for clients. Every word and sentence makes that process clear and easy to understand, again, with that 6th grade reading level. And when you print out the application tool, it's also easy to read and follow and uses some of those same principles as well. There's help that's provided along the way with live chat features and functionality within the tool. And then the last guiding principle is to ensure that this is a mobile first tool as well as being responsive. So the Benefits Cal application portal is designed to help provide an enhanced user experience on every screen size, whether it's your phone or a tablet or computer, to help accommodate all of our different users in their experience as well, depending on what device they're on. The Benefits Cal tool is now being used in 40 of our 58 counties, so really excited to bring on board the remaining 18 counties, which are all planned to be phased in by mid next calendar year. So really excited about the changes here. Before, folks were able to call in to apply. They were guided to 3 different systems and platforms across the state, depending on what county they resided in. So it was actually pretty challenging to navigate the application process. So excited that there is just one tool available no matter what program you're trying to apply for. And then lastly, just to cover one last new initiative, and then I see hands and we'll answer some questions, but that is the Statewide Verification Hub. If we could go to the next slide, please. Really want to just flag this quickly because we're really excited about the opportunity that's presented with the development of this tool. And SVH, Statewide Verification Hub, is going to provide a single source of verification for all of our customer service, our customer information, to help streamline application process across different safety net programs here in California. What you see in this chart kind of navigates a client through the application process. And the areas in blue are the areas where that Statewide Verification Hub would come into play to help streamline the verification process, where verification may have been provided for another program or entity. The hub could then use that other source of verification to satisfy or fulfill a need in another program area so that the client isn't having to re-verify their information over and over again. So really excited about the work that's happening in this space right now. We are still navigating some of the stakeholder engagement processes to help develop the tool, but the goal is to have it fully launched in the 24-25 fiscal year. Next slide, just highlight some of the pain points and some of the fixes that we're hoping to achieve with the Statewide Verification Hub. The pain points really focus on alleviating some of the stressors that customers experience, as well as county and state staff. And then it demonstrates and shows how it's going to streamline and make that process a little bit easier there on the right side of your screen in green. I'm not going to go into detail since the visual, I think, does a good job of explaining the different bubbles that I'm seeing at that time. And I want to answer some questions. So with that, I'm going to go to Julie because I see your hand is up.
Thank you so much, Christina. I think we're going to hold questions until the end. We did have a poll. I think we're going to go ahead and not do that poll so that we have a little more time for questions. And also, if everyone's okay with it, we're going to nix our 5-minute break. So again, we have more time for questions at the end. So I just encourage folks to take a break when you need to. Are you okay with taking questions after Angie presents, Christina? Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was so much fantastic information. I'd like to invite Angie to drop in.
Sure. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Right on. Well, so and a lot of the different things that have been covered so far, I think we've tried here in Idaho as well. And I think for me, one of the things that has helped us be successful in this is that what we had started with, I think about more than 15 years ago, but we continue to foster it within our organization, is one where we really want to make sure that we've got a strong
from the 1970s
culture.
today until today.
Can you guys hear me? That was weird.
Sorry, I think that somebody accidentally unmuted themselves. It sounds
Okay.
Please go ahead.
But anyway, so I was just saying that the culture with which we work on things, I think, is one of the things that an area that we focus on. And I know as I was looking at the objectives of what we were hoping to accomplish on this call, it was about the usage of technology and how do we do that? And how do we make those choices? And I think Justin even touched on that, where it was like, well, there's just so much, right, that you can do. And everyone, and you can start surveying customers, and as Justin said, they'll say a whole bunch of things. You can talk to your eligibility workers, they'll say a bunch of things, and it's like, where do you start? And do you move to the cloud, and do you change from mainframe? And a lot of us, like me included, I didn't come from a technology background, and so trying to make those decisions, it seems, can be very daunting. But my advice would be, I think, one, the people that are surrounding me, the people that work on the ways in which we can make and integrated eligibility be as rapid as we can. In Idaho, it's same day service. We can have somebody walks in, we give them their food stamps. With Medicaid, it's very short time frames. We have online portals, we have all sorts of things. But we started with supporting our staff and really understanding who our customers are. And so taking the time to really build out those scenarios, those profiles of, the elderly and that single mom, I think that someone talked about with 3 kids, and making sure that not only can we understand that, but also making sure that it's respected amongst the organization, that it varies, right? It's not one thing, and one eligibility worker is going to point to all the interviews that they've done, and that's who they're going to think about. And a lot of us, like I was an eligibility worker many years ago, we tend to sometimes go back to our history of what we remember, and we're like, oh yeah, this is who we interview, and this is who they are. And it's not true, and that's not fair to them, and we can't really make good decisions when we do that. So I think one, I would say understanding who they are, who are your customers now. How has that evolved too after the pandemic, where even the ones who love to come to the intake offices don't anymore, right? They all have their phones, and they want to sit on phones or access the internet. And how do you make sure that you support that for them? And then for the people, business analysts, the application developers, all of them, we spend time really looking at all of them and making sure that they can subscribe to that culture, that they understand that. So we spend a lot of time doing that before we even move to the technology. But certainly once we look at the technology, it's about agile methodology and how do we do things as rapidly as possible so that we can get that feedback. And so we were listening on calls like this about text messaging, and it was like, well, we would want to do that, right? So we figured out how do you identify one group of people, and let's send them text messages and see how we can do that, what we would say. And it's not like this gigantic thing. It's like, well, let's just try that, So we picked 5,000 customers on the child support side, and we were like, well, let's send them these text messages because we know these people had been making payments and they hadn't for 2 months. Let's send that to them, and let's tell them, we're here, make these payments. Here's ways to do that immediately. That same month, those people, $500,000 worth of income just from those people. It was like, oh my goodness, this works, right? And you can just then continue to learn from that and make those decisions. And the people who can help continue to, look at the data and understand who else could we, talk to and all of that, because they do have these profiles now of who your customers are, and they understand the culture of rapid, development, but being able to be brave, but also not take on these gigantic things. It makes it a lot easier. It makes it easier to make decisions, safer, and also makes it be to where it's successful. Other things that we've done, we have IdaLink, that's our customer portal, and so we put that out there for customers to use, and we're making that mobile friendly because we recognize that customers need to use that. And it wasn't very. We picked, again, because we like to pick different things and not try to take gigantic things. We do, SNAP and cash assistance and, Medicaid and child support. We have all the programs that, are under me. But we just picked Medicaid, and we said, well, for Medicaid, let's create this online application. And then after that, once customers started using that, well, let's see if we can do auto eligibility. And we could, right? Customers could go in and they could do that, and they could see their eligibility. We've experimented with mapping from our portal, our customer portal, into our integrated eligibility system. And that's worked really well because, you know, then our eligibility workers don't have to go in and type the things that a customer spent time on. But, you know, knowing that we have to continue to evolve, that's one of the main things that we're really looking at, is that human-centric piece. We now talk in our cultural discussions about how you have to make sure that you are looking at them, at customers, Idahoans, and how do you help them and meet them where they are. And in doing so, we've had this new movement to our integrated eligibility system. Why couldn't we make that aspect of that be something to where customers can also then access? And in doing that, then we don't have to do this mapping of information that comes from a portal into a system. It's something that becomes more seamless. So get lots of vendors, lots of people would have ideas of ways to accomplish that. But I think, again, being able to really understand and instill culture into the people that are going to be sitting on those calls, making sure that you have one, right, that you can do that, and that you have those ideas of who your customers are, and be able to organize that data in a way that you can do that. You can take on all sorts of little things and grow upon the things that you find successes. So I think that for me, Julie, I think is one of the things that I would say in Idaho that we do every month.
Angie, that's so great. Thank you so much. If I could like encapsulate the thing that I think, and I would invite Christina to come back on camera because she's going to get a lot of questions here as well. If I could just sort of like boil that down as best I could, the takeaways that for me like really jump out are, it is okay. It might even be like essential to start small, right? You do not have to eat the elephant. You have to do one thing and then build on that thing going forward. The other thing that I heard from both of you, and I'm grateful for the extent to which it builds off what I said, but also a little embarrassed that you just put it so much better than I did, is yes, listening, but really it's a cycle of listening and action. I think that is really what I heard from both of you, that there's a cycle of listening and action that drives your steps forward. I'm wondering, Angie, if I can ask, just through all the work that you guys have done, like single biggest success.
Single biggest success for technology. I mean, I point to the fact that we've got in-house app development teams that can partner with partners so that we can, you know, not only take on something, but that we can make it be to where we can maintain some of that stuff. I would say that gives us a lot of flexibility with the kind of pilot things that we like to do, so we can get feedback on. But if you're asking more of like what have we done out there that most recently have been able to help us, I would say that it would be the text messaging. I think that's the one that's bringing in the completion of the redeterminations that need to happen. We've got more, we can kind of control the call volumes of things because we know when we can start texting people, and we can expect when they're going to start calling us back. So I think that one would be a number one.
That's great. Thank you so much. Christina, I just, first of all, like, congratulations in two ways, right? Like, one, on like all the work California is doing. Secondly, to you personally for choosing to put up the new Cal Benefits application website, but not the old website, so we could compare and contrast how different and maybe terrible the old ones are. You know, it's a really stark contrast between what you're offering to people now and what's been there for them over the course of the past 20 years or so. I'm a little bit glib there, but I just ask you the same question. Can you point a finger at sort of like the single biggest success? If you can restrict it to TANF, I think that's probably helpful for folks, but what is the thing out of all that work that you feel most excited and most proud about?
I definitely think it would be the ability to do that type of engagement around messaging, similar to what Angie was sharing, because we are able to actually measure the return on investment when it comes to our clients and their experience. So whether it be access to a park pass or one of the $2.5 million we were able to return in tax refunds, like there's actually measurable successes that you can see our clients being able to obtain in doing that type of work. Yeah, I would say definitely the power of being able to communicate and message directly to clients in that way.
That's great. There's a couple of questions from our audience I want to get to here. I'm going to ask you guys this one and then give you a second to think about it while I answer a question that was asked to me, right? And so the question for Angie and Christina, there's so many advantages to advancing our technology to make programs, information, and resources more accessible to families. However, and this is from Catherine, however, how do you make everything available to families who may not have access to tech devices such as smartphones, tablets, computers? This is a very present, very, very real challenge. I'll let you guys think about that for just a second, and I want to answer JR's question. JR asked me how Propel makes money and what do we do with the data that we collect from people. Just very quickly, we make money through lead generation, basically, right? We offer through the job board and through savings, discount offers. If our users choose to sort of follow those services through, sign up for the discount, or take a job that they found through our job services, we make money off of those things. And the other question is extremely, extremely important. What do we do with the data we collect from people? Nothing. Our users are very low income. They're very vulnerable. We allow the people who advertise on our website to geographically target them so that people can see jobs that are available near them. But we don't retain any personally identifiable information beyond name, and none of our systems allow information that could be used to access somebody's EBT account. We don't retain any of that anywhere. That information is stored on the user's device, not on our servers and systems. So we take data privacy really, really seriously. And the way that we try to operate is to make sure that our incentives are aligned with our users' incentives when it comes to that sort of stuff. And I'm happy to talk about that at length later, but I just wanted to make sure and address that pretty directly. Angie, do you want to go first? What about the digital divide?
Yep. And that came from the profiles, right, that we've created of people, because we understood, like, yes, we have less intake traffic because a lot of people just want to go on their mobile phones, right, and access things. But there's the nursing homes, and we know that there are people who just aren't comfortable with technology. In Idaho, we're one of the refugee hubs, so we have Ukrainians arriving now, but from all over in Africa constantly coming into Idaho, and they don't come with phones, and we need to be able to communicate with them and support them. And so in all of those for looking at what to do, a lot of those things have to do with the partnerships that we've created with them, right? The refugee agencies or with the nursing homes. We've created portals for not just customers, but a portal that is for the schools, the hospitals, navigation. So the navigators that have access to TANF money who can help, they can see who's eligible so that they can then do that. But then we look, because of the data, right? It's so important to have that. Say somebody is on SNAP benefits and they qualify for LIHEAP, for the energy.
Oh no.
Those aren't
good. Oh, Angie's freezing.
We've got just about 3 more minutes left in the session, so I'm sorry, Angie, we may want to transition to Christina.
Let's do that.
Yes, and yes to everything Angie shared. for us here in California, I will also say there is some work that's happening to try and make the modes in which we actually are able to do that type of like client messaging variables. So like some folks can receive text messages, some will receive that direct call and a voice message, some will receive email notifications. So that way we are maximizing the reach. But I also want to highlight, yes, we're doing that. I also shared how benefits Cal system or tool can be accessed, whether you're on your smartphone, tablet, computer, etc. But there's also work that's happening in the state to invest in an initiative from the governor called Broadband for All, which is really intended to get internet access to all of our rural communities across the state. And we've been trying to leverage and support where we can with our TANF program. We were also able to secure through the Barbara Bush Foundation some smartphones and tablets that we were able to disperse to some of our counties and rural communities so that they had access to that technology, because one of the other things that we identified was even if there was a smartphone or a tablet in the home, the children were using it at the beginning of the pandemic to engage in school activities. So it really limited their availability around engagement. So we really wanted to increase the number of smart devices in the homes of the recipients that we were serving so that they can engage in the work that we're doing in this space. So those are some of the investments that are happening in the state to try and get folks access to broadband, internet, and then to devices as well.
Thanks, Christina. I think we're at time. I'm going to turn it back over to Julie, but I just wanted to say to Christina and Angie, thank you so much. I learned so much from you guys today. I really appreciate you sharing. And to everybody who's here, thanks for giving me the opportunity to sit here and to learn alongside you and share a little bit of the work that I've done. Would love to follow up and talk to folks later. And Julie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I wish we could dedicate more time to this session. It just so many amazing things. I love the way you summarized it, though, Justin. Cycle of listening and action is success. I would add partnership in that. I think that both Angie and Christina really highlighted how partnerships played a great role in their success. Thank you all so much for your wonderful presentation. I apologize that we have had to pivot so quickly, but what we're going to do is nix the 5-minute break and encourage you to take a break as you need to. We are going to go ahead and transition to our next wonderful speaker. I am excited to introduce Dr. Terry Horton to share her insights with you on the future of work and how to thrive in that future. Dr. Terry Horton is a widely recognized thought leader on the future of work. She's an international speaker and a subject matter expert with 2 global research consultancies. She was included in the, I can't pronounce this, Analytica 2022 Who's Who in the Future of Work report as a key opinion leader and expert with high credibility and authority. She holds a Master of Arts in Organizational Management, an MBA with a concentration in marketing, micro-credentials, and AI business strategy from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, data analytics and human resources from Cornell University. Dr. Horton holds a doctorate in education focused on organizational change and leadership from the University of Southern California. And we're so happy to welcome you, Dr. Horton.
Thank you so much. It is my absolute pleasure to spend a little bit of time with you this afternoon to hopefully inspire you about the opportunities and possibilities around the future of work and what that means to you as leaders, your teams, and also to your clients. Next slide, please. So in the context of reorientating and rising, I want to present to you today, we're going to talk about the future of work, where we've been, where we're going, what it means to lead in the future of work, and how the leadership model and paradigm is shifting, and also how you can prepare your clients to thrive as the future of work continues to unfold. Next slide. So let's start by defining what the future of work is. The future of work, when you hear that phrase, it is very specifically oriented around the period of 2020 to 2030. We are already 2 years into the unfolding of the future of work. And so when you hear the term the future of work, or you hear your clients refer to the fact that they're developing future of work strategies, I want you to understand that the future of work is unfolding right before our eyes. It is absolutely transformational. The future of work and the strategies that underpin it are transforming how we work, when we work, where we work, and even now, why we work. And it really involves this whole concept around digital transformation. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple slides down. But when I refer to digital transformation, it's about how organizations use some existing technologies and futuristic technologies and combine them in really compelling and new ways to solve new problems, to be more competitive, create better experiences for customers and for employees, and to enter new markets, and to be able to revolutionize, if you will, the business in ways that were not possible in the past. So I want you to know that the future of work is game changing. I don't want you to be afraid of the future of work unfolding. I want you to be able to, hopefully after our presentation, feel solid, 10 toes down in facing the unfolding of the future of work and staring it in the face and feeling compelled about the opportunities that it creates for you and your clients. Next slide, please. So before I talk about all that the future of work will continue to deliver for us, I want us to take a step back. And I want to take a step back and do this through the context of this statement. What do we know? What we do know is that the pandemic and all that 2020 delivered accelerated the unfolding of the future of work by 5 to 7 years. Some experts argue that it accelerated the unfolding of work by nearly 10. And so when you think about the acceleration, think about how it accelerated online learning in K through 12 and in institutions of higher learning, how it accelerated the unfolding of telehealth and e-commerce and the touchless economy. And so when we think about work, here's what I want you to know. I want you to know that much of what we are experiencing today in work, we weren't supposed to experience that. It wasn't supposed to be here yet. And it was supposed to arrive and normalize around 2025, 2026. But let's take a look. And particularly as organizations look at our experience. So in 2020, we went through, organizations experienced the shock of the pandemic. It was lockdown, social distancing. It was the rise of the civil justice movement, and it also amplified social and economic inequalities. And a lot of organizations really took the charge and stood up tall to find ways to really get in front of some of these issues. When we moved into 2021, McKinsey refers to this period as the Great Unfreezing. So think of like having experienced a car accident, and you had a car accident and you stop, you look around, and you're asking all the passengers, are we okay? Are you okay? Okay, we survived it. The car was resilient enough so that we were able to withstand the impact of the accident. That's kind of what the unfreezing was like. And so businesses and organizations were able to look back and say, wow, okay, we were able to continue business. Our business continuity strategies for the most part worked, and we were resilient, and the resilient strategies worked. And so the focus for 2022 was all about the Great Reset. It was shifting from surviving to developing strategies that enable organizations and those that support those organizations to thrive. And so it was about leveraging everything, all of the data and insights learned from the past 2 years to really use that information to leverage the shift and change around people, processes, and strategies. As 2022 unfolded, continues to, in the early stages of 2022 rather, we dealt with the increased impact of the supply chain crisis. And then we had the Great Resignation. The concept of the Great Resignation emerged in late 2020, but we really didn't understand it. We thought that perhaps it was the data stated early that it was women that were leaving the workplace in unprecedented numbers. Later on, early 2021, the data was continuing to come in, and it revealed that it was overwhelmingly Gen Z and millennials that were leaving. We learned late in 2021 that this was a phenomenon and one with impact that would last moving forward. We also refer to it as the big quit. So 4 out of 10 people wanted to change jobs or leave their employers as a result of this new experience and thinking and reimagining of what it means to work in their relationship with their employers. Also, the impact of we have a geopolitical crisis and the impending recession, the emergence of a new variant, Omicron, and then now the monkeypox virus that we're all faced with. So if you think about where we've been and what we've experienced up to this point, this creates a high level of complexity, ambiguity, and uncertainty for organizations. And so the organizations that thrive in the future and that are able to harness the power of all of the learning from the last couple of years and harness the power of people and teams are able to move through this and beyond so that they set up strategies and practices that enable them to thrive. Next slide, please. Now let's take a look at the look forward. So you may have heard some of your clients, or you're experiencing this in your own organization. There's a huge focus on organizational purpose now. A lot of that was to come, but it accelerated, particularly in 2020 and 2021. And so organizations are focusing on purpose. Who are we? And what do we want to represent? What type of impact around people, communities, partners, and the planet do we want to have? And how do we operationalize this vision of this new purpose and impact across the entire organization? Digital transformation accelerated. There was a survey, Accenture conducted a survey in 2019. And in that survey, 80% of CEOs revealed that they wanted to amp up digital transformation by 45%. That was in 2019, before the pandemic. And if you think about how much work had to change and become digitized during the pandemic, you can see aspects of how quickly that's accelerated. And when we talk about digital transformation, here's what I want you to remember. It's not just about the technology. It is about leveraging the technology so that organizations can transform processes, create new business models, and it enables the reimagination of jobs and work, and even that of products and services. So the technology is the digital aspect. It enables the transformation. It is the work of the organization to transform culture and processes. The future of work is also remote and hybrid. Now, it's not just about allowing employees to work remotely or to have a hybrid work schedule. It is about adopting a remote first culture. What does that mean? It means that working remotely is seamless. It means that organizations have processes, workflows, and practices in place that enable the efficiency and success of remote and hybrid work. And then there's employee experience. This is a biggie. There is a fascinating study, Accenture and McKinsey have both done work in this regard, about how executives are prioritizing employee experience just as much as they're prioritizing customer experience. Why? Because there's a direct tie-in, right, to retention and engagement. Let's take a look at what this means. It's about having employees experiencing work that is purposeful. They understand the impact of the work that they do, that they are kept safe. Not just physical safety, but what else? Psychological safety. They care about their experience, DIEB, diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, being embedded in their experience. They want fairness. They want to be developed. They want career opportunities. They want growth. They also want work-life balance and harmony. They want mentoring, and they want to be happy. Now, generationally, this is a foreign concept, right? We were all, for the most part, if you're Gen X or older, we were socialized around work to leave everything personal at the door, and there's not any integration of that. Well, that is not the context of today's work environment. And so balance and happiness are important. In fact, recently, Microsoft shifted their approach from measuring engagement to measuring how employees are thriving. And then you can actually, if you're interested in that study, you can Google it and pull it up. It is very fascinating about how they are transforming the organization around culture, around leadership models, around leading and managing for outcomes, and allowing flexibility around work schedules and workflow, so that there is an integration of the energy and inspiration around work with the ability to thrive from a personal perspective. There's also a tremendous focus on upskilling, reskilling, and outskilling. So let's differentiate those. Upskilling means Jennifer is doing her job and there are a few more aspects. There are aspects of her job that have changed. Perhaps there's the introduction of a new technology or system, and she's got to just upskill to garner a few more skills around that. Reskilling means that Kimberly is being completely skilled for a completely different role, and that Kimberly has to learn a new set of skills. And then there's outskilling. A couple of companies, AT&T over the years has done a good job with this, and more companies are engaging in outskilling. Outskilling is a strategy that fortifies the employer brand and engagement for the employees that are left. So that means that, let's say, for an example, an organization knows that they're going to eliminate a department. Think about all the layoffs that we're experiencing and we're hearing about now. And that is taking a forward view and a human-centered approach to say, Catherine, we are going to, at the end of the year, we are no longer going to have this role, the role that you're in currently. We will not have that role moving forward. And there is not an opportunity for you to move into another role in the organization. So we're going to provide a learning experience for you that prepares you with the skills that you will need as you transition into another role outside of the organization. That is representative of employee care, humanizing the workplace. And again, it is a good tool to reinforce engagement, retention, and the employer brand. And then there is the metaverse. All right, let me just see in the chat really quickly. How many of you have heard of the metaverse? Anyone? Yes or no? Let's see. Kind of, sort of. Yeah, that's normal. Yeah, so let's talk about the metaverse. I actually just created a class from a LinkedIn Learning instructor as well. And I just recently created a class for HR leaders and the role that they'll play in transitioning work into the metaverse. So what does this mean for organizations? So if we think about it from the HR perspective and what your clients may experience, much of the talent acquisition process is moving into the metaverse. We've got companies that connect job fairs, interviews in the metaverse. Some of them require that the applicant or the applicant don a virtual reality headset. Many of them don't. They just need to have access to a computer and they enter through their own browser. But interviews, assessments, learning and development is transitioning in there. There's a statistic that says from PricewaterhouseCoopers that learning and development that takes place in immersive environments utilizing virtual reality have outcomes as high as 72% as it relates to the stickiness, if you will, of the training. What else is happening in the metaverse? We've got universities creating metaversities. 10 universities across the country this year in fall of 2022, just a few months away, are launching courses from Morehouse to the University of Mexico to the University of Maryland and even some of the CSUs of launching courses in the metaverse where students will have experience learning in an immersive environment like that. I just read today that a technical school in New York, for their job training program, I believe there are 50 students, and these 50 students actually get to experience, work in, and learn new skills in the metaverse. So let me say this to you. If you've not heard of the metaverse or you understand what it is in the context of being an immersive environment, but not the role that it will play in work, I encourage you to become more curious and learn about this. I encourage you, if you can, purchase a virtual reality headset so that you can begin experiencing that and you will understand what your clients will experience and even how some of your partners are transforming work, aspects of work and elements of work into the metaverse. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide. All right, I love this slide. It's a bit overwhelming. Don't try to read it all. Let me bring it. I'm going to serve it up for you. So when we talk about digital transformation, remember I said it's about combining some existing technologies and futuristic technologies in game-changing ways to become more efficient, save cost, become more competitive, create better experiences. You are looking at the map. This is as of 2021. I am waiting for the report. And you can see at the bottom, if you're interested in it, I'm going to provide you all with a moderated version of the PowerPoint. So you'll have this in PDF format. But this gives you a snapshot. This is not all inclusive. These are just the biggest players in the space. So how is AI and machine learning and all of these futuristic technologies transforming work? If you look over to the left side of the slide, it's all about infrastructure. It's think about your work environment. How many systems do you have that collect data, but none of them talk to each other, right? So that inhibits the ability for leaders to make compelling data-driven decisions. So the left side is all about connectivity and infrastructure at the enterprise level. In the middle, it's all about analytics and data. So collecting data that is descriptive, that describes what's happening now, and collecting data and using predictive analytics to predict outcomes, whether they're outcomes around employee engagement or outcomes around the performance, let's say, of a particular product or service, outcomes that give you vision into the future of what can be so that leaders can make better decisions. Now I want you to take a look at the right side, all the purple. This gives you a snapshot of the how pervasive the use of artificial intelligence is across the enterprise. Look at some of the functional areas: sales, marketing, customer service, human capital, which is human resources. And I talk a bit about that later in the presentation about how the recruitment and selection process is being transformed and what you need to get in front of for your clients. Legal, finance, look at all of the industries. This does not mean that artificial intelligence is going to eliminate every job. These logos represent a task or a function that can be done better, provided the data is correct. I always say that. Utilizing the technology so that the jobs can be reimagined to deliver higher value that aligns with the organization's vision and objectives. Yep. So think about it in this way. When we go in the grocery store, are all the cashiers, have all the cashier jobs been eliminated? Of course not. If we go into the bank, have all of the teller positions been eliminated? No, they need fewer. The future of work is robust, and these technologies enable not only organizations to be more effective, but it also creates an opportunity for employees that engage with these technologies to develop and acquire skills that position them to continue moving forward in the future. They can also augment and amplify the work that we do. So digital transformation is about becoming more efficient, utilizing these technologies at an enterprise level, and also from a functional area perspective as well for jobs. Next slide. So here's this is from the latest Gartner report. And when we talk about digital transformation, the use of artificial intelligence in the workplace, this provides a pathway for what we will experience relative to work later on in the metaverse. So check this statistic out. By 2028, employees will use avatars, language software, conversational interfaces, gestureless technology, right? And dialect translation to work and speak with team members. By 2028, it's normalized. Remember, normalized. All right, next slide, please. I want to take you on a trip, and I want you to experience what working in the metaverse will look like. Now, let me tell you this, your organization may not be here yet, but your partners may be. Some of the other institutions and organizations that you work with may be developing metaverse strategies relative to work. And your clients may experience some of this. So let's take a look.
Be like. Imagine if you could be at the office without the commute. You would still have that sense of presence, shared physical space, those chance interactions that make your day all accessible from anywhere. Now imagine that you have your perfect work setup and you can actually do more than you could in your regular work setup. And on top of all that, you can keep wearing your favorite sweatpants.
Looking good. Let's get together real quick for a debrief.
I'm free now. Let's jump in. Hi.
Hey.
So what do we think?
think it's ready.
Great.
I'll prep it for the presentation.
All right. Good luck.
Imagine a space where you can tune out distractions and focus on the task at hand. And when you're ready to share what you've been working on, you can present it as if you're right there with the team.
Wait, where's Mark?
I think he's in the middle of something.
Now I have a question for you. Type in the chat. How far away do you think we are from working like that?
Over the last year and a half.
How many years away? Type in the chat. 5. What else? 3 to 5. We're covering 21 year. Yeah, Brian, you're getting close. 7. Yeah. So here's what I want you to know. So the metaverse, it's not going, when we talk about the metaverse being fully, interoperable, kind of like when the metaverse can duplicate some of the ease in which we navigate from one platform to the next on the internet, we're about 10 years out from it being fully interoperable like that. But we are not. I'm actually speaking at a conference as an avatar and later as a hologram later this year at a conference. The technology is here. Microsoft Mesh has their, I believe it's Mesh or Meta, their HoloLens, the HoloLens headset. When you think about this at an enterprise level and how this can ramp up, now this of course wouldn't materialize across the entire enterprise. It would be, let's say you have a creative group and they work together, or engineers. The HoloLens headset to appear as a hologram is not that expensive. It's like $4,000 or $5,000 if you think about that. Yeah, think about back in the day, for those of you that are Gen X or older. I remember when Texas Instruments came out with the first calculator. My dad had a friend who was an engineer and it was like $2,500. By the time I got to high school, they were 10. Yep. And so commercializing this technology, Brooke, commercializing this technology is going to happen at much rapid pace. But your clients will experience some of this, particularly as it relates to the job search process. We'll talk about it already. Oh, that's a great point. All right, so we've talked about a lot of things. We talked about how, where we've been. We've talked about how the future of work will continue to unfold and what the demands around the future of work are. So you can really kind of see why leadership needs to morph and change, and we need to augment the existing leadership paradigms. But let's take a deeper dive at some of the drivers of the change. Just from the examples that I've shared with you and what you yourself have witnessed over the course of the last couple of years, you can truly see that the rate of change is extraordinarily rapid. I said earlier that VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, is really kind of nuanced if leaders knew how to balance and make decisions and use insights without having all of the answers. That was really a nuanced kind of skill. This is our new environment. It's been normalized. And so learning how to lead in an environment where we don't have as many answers anymore, and at the same time empower and move forward teams, becomes more of a challenge. We talked about organizations moving to this focus on purpose and social impact. Leaders have to understand how to operationalize that, right? Across how they manage processes and people in the day-to-day aspects of their jobs. Remote work and hybrid work are here to stay. The organizations, and there's some industries that are moving. Tech industries are doing that a lot easier than others. But you have the industries like the banking industry, for the most part, that is really kind of pushing back against this. You have some essential workers and some aspects of work that, based on the nature of the work, just can't be remote or hybrid. But the employees still expect some level of flexibility relative to their jobs. And then there's that Great Resignation again. Let's take a look at what we experienced, right? What we experienced as a result of the pandemic. Let's take a look at what the latest research says about that. Look at that. 65% of people said that living through the pandemic shifted their attitude towards the value and aspects of outside work. 65% said it made me rethink the place that work should have in my life. 62%, it made me long for a bigger change in my life. 58%, it changed my perspective on the desirability of my workplace location. 52%, it made me question the purpose of my day-to-day job. And 50%, it changed my expectations towards my employer. So the Great Resignation was a phenomenon in and of itself because people were quitting. The dynamics remain, and that is what employers are going to have to continue to manage as they focus on employee experience and as leaders focus on delivering optimal employee experiences. And when we talk about employee experiences, it is the ability to experience work in ways that do what? That allow them to harmonize their life and work. There is a great, I don't know if you saw any of you saw this yesterday, but the world's biggest 4-day work week trial is underway, and it's based in the UK. They took workers from large organizations across the world. And the preliminary results are in. They came in yesterday. Now, 4-day, I'm not talking 4-10s. This is as organizations look to solve for this work-life harmony and at the same time use that the strategies around work-life harmony to drive engagement and retention. A 4-day work week is right in the middle of the mix of this. So it's not 4-10s, it is literally 4 days, and you do not receive a cut and pay for the hours. And so the results so far show that the participants are experiencing higher levels of happiness, health, engagement, and performance. And I think the trial runs through September. So these are a lot of concepts that we didn't have to rationalize before around work. Work is not about just the work anymore. It is about, just as companies are, think about some of your favorite brands, just as they are really, really focused on creating compelling experiences for customers that resonate with them to make them come back and to continue to buy from them and to capture a larger share of their wallets. We have to have that same focus on experience for employees. What else is driving the change? The rapid advance of AI, data, and analytics. You got to see that on that slide. And the critical importance of prioritizing inclusion and belonging. Not just diversity. Diversity, I always argue, is the easiest part of the acronym, the DIEB. That's the numbers. Inclusion is something totally different. Inclusion is about how people feel seen, heard, and represented, and how you operationalize equity with inclusion across the entire employee experience, from onboarding until they leave. And then, so if you think about this, the biggest piece, what am I connecting all of this to when we talk about this change? The ability to attract and retain top talent, to engage them, drive their performance, and to retain them. Because all of those have a direct line or a straight line through to profitability. Next slide. So with all of these drivers of change, we're going to walk through these together. All of this change requires a new type of leader. So what do these new leaders have to do? So I've broken this down into 4 areas for you. Number 1, you've got to leverage emotional intelligence. Part of that is redefining how we think about emotional intelligence too. It's not just about, do I have enough awareness to know who I am? It's not just about, can I get along with people? I am zeroing in when I do leadership development and training. I zero right in on this green area, decision making. So as a leader, if you are future ready and future focused, you are capable of getting out of your own way so that you can actually see reality in the backdrop of a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment. If you are able to do that, if you're able to truly do what we call reality testing, then that helps you better align organizational objectives, change initiatives, to make better decisions. It makes you more flexible, more empathetic to the teams that you were leading and to your colleagues. And what's the last one? More optimistic. The future of work is exciting if you prepare and you understand it and you harness your own power to own it on your terms. Most people aren't able to do that. So the advent of this wave of technology and how jobs are changing is a frightening topic to people. And we have to recognize that. I shared with the team earlier when I was doing my research, all of my research for my doctorate at USC was on the future of work and the impact of artificial intelligence on work and on people. And I remember going through this period where I was really sad. And I said, oh my gosh, there is not enough room in the future of work for everyone. And what happens to the folks that can't move through this? And so that compelled me to do more and more research and even build out for my business ways to help people understand what the future of work can deliver. It is different. We will look for opportunities in different ways. But the biggest part of this is that we've got to get ourselves together so that we can actually see the opportunities and the directions in which we move. Next is to develop a growth mindset. If you take a look at the comparison between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, look at it. If you have a fixed mindset, that means you are settled in, cemented. You avoid learning because it seems pointless. Why am I learning all of this new stuff? It's not going to change anything. You give up easily. I tried, it didn't work. I'm going back to what I did before. You hide your failures to avoid judgment. What else? You avoid challenges to avoid failure. Shifting from that mindset, you cannot get there without emotional intelligence. Shifting to a growth mindset is when you're actually doing the work. It is critically important for leaders to move through this process, because if you develop a growth mindset, you will look for new things to learn. You will see shifts and changes differently. You will see them as opportunities. You will embrace challenges, and it will allow you to inspire others. If you as a leader cannot inspire your teams, how do you expect your teams to inspire your clients? How do you expect your partners to believe in your process of your aim to uplift people in communities if you are not optimistic? The next thing you want to do, future-focused leaders do, is they think, act, and perform like a futurist. Now, I'm a futurist. I'm going to give you an easy model that will work for you, because futuring and foresight are kind of strategic and statistical models. But here's a way for you to do it that makes sense. This is called a pestle analysis. Just remember the acronyms. So let's think about this. If you are preparing your area of business for the future, and think about all the things that we covered already that we experienced and that we will continue to experience. If you have a myopic view of the work and the world, how can you possibly be prepared to move through with ease and with a level of agency, move through the future? So what does that mean you have to take a look at? You have to take a look at your job, the work that you do, the partners that you engage with, the clients that you move through systems, and think about what's happening politically, economically, socially, technologically, from an environmental perspective and a legal perspective. And then you have to rationalize how those things might impact the business, your department, your teams, and your clients, and even your partners. Yep. So how do you do that? This means that future-focused leaders are constantly consuming. What does that growth mindset say? You're constantly learning. If you are not engaging in the process of acquiring knowledge across a variety of ways, you are going to be challenged to do this. I make a recommendation even in my grad classes. You can download an app. The one that I use that's easy, it's free, it's called Flipboard. And I go in and I identify all the areas of interest, from technology to business, consumer sentiment, all sorts of things. You can do tons of them. And so the news automatically comes to me through that app. So that is a way to constantly, that's one form of constantly consuming information or outside of the scope of your work. The next thing that you have to do is to be able to look for signals of change. A signal of change now is how consumers are responding in this environment. How are they responding? How is spending and saving shifted? How has travel shifted? These are just little examples. And what does that mean? What are those shifts or signals a greater indicator of. Yep. And then as you collect all of this information about what's happening and you rationalize that and put it under the umbrella of the organizational objectives and initiatives, then you think about what might need to shift, what scenarios might emerge from best case to worst case. No change, best case to worst case. And then you develop strategies to approach them. Think about how much power this is, right? So then after doing that and creating these scenarios, what you then do is you have to make sense of it. And once you're able to make sense of it, you can begin to connect the dots. With me on that? What I love about this model, I've synthesized it down, is you can apply this personally and you can apply it to your clients personally and in your role as well. This is the way that we have to begin thinking. This gives you agency and power to be able to have more control over the future that you want to experience. And then you've got to craft a new leadership identity. I've been doing a lot of training on this. So what does this mean? Particularly as it relates to remote work. As it relates to remote work, it is a very different experience than getting dressed, getting in your car, driving to your office, walking in that building, walking into your office or cubicle, and being able to see your people and your teams around you. And now we do much of that, particularly with remote work, on flat 2D screens, using platforms like Zoom, Teams, and others. Yeah. So your identity of a leader can then be shaken. Yeah. So if I'm not actually there with people, I'm not actually there in the building, if it's remote or even hybrid, even with hybrid models, you have workers that come 2 or 3 days during the week, the vibe is still not the same. There's still not even the same number of people there. So as you evolve to this future focused and future ready leader, you have to think about how your role shifts. You have more technology to provide data for you, more insights, and you move from managing processes, right, to managing outcomes. All of this ties directly into remote work, right? So we're not managing, how many meetings did you have this week? We're not managing how many times you appeared in a meeting. We are managing around Catherine and Kimberly. This is your expectation. This is the expectation for your role. And here's what the outcomes or performance metrics that I need you to meet over the course of this month. Just get there for me. I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm going to communicate back and forth with you, but I want you to have the freedom to get there. Does that make sense? So then we can become, as leaders, really kind of move into this role, right, of being coach and inspirer. Still staying focused on the business. We still have to drive productivity and performance, but it is a completely different relationship with the employee. It requires more work. Think about what I just explained to you as being important for really kind of crafting out this model of a future focused leader. If you are reimagining and if you're evaluating and reimagining and coming up with scenarios, you have a host of other ways and new nuanced ways to think about solving problems, and you engage with your teams in those ways. So that can inspire what? Creativity, innovation, and growth. Next slide. So I often say this, if you're going to be a future ready leader, you have to be multi-skilled. Now you have to think, act, and perform like a futurist. You have to be multifaceted, and you have to be able to understand how to apply the right intersections of skills so that you are the creators and the designers of the experiences of your teams and help and aid in leading your organization into the future. Next. All right, there's a lot on this slide. I'm going to walk you through it because I want you to really grab it. I included Maslow's hierarchy of needs on this slide because it was really stood out to me, and I want you to look at it with me as we move through. So the future of work in the context of what you do requires that you are preparing your clients to thrive. Remember, it's not about surviving anymore. It is moving. We have hit the reset part. Regardless of what faces us, what is uncertain, what is complex and ambiguous, we are still focusing on thriving, organizations thriving, leaders, people, teams thriving, and your clients. So that your programs address the bottom of the pyramid, basic needs. But what I want you to do is think about this. As you think about all the ways that you can support and help your clients, the future of work demands that you help them, you create pathways for them to experience their full potential. however they define that. So we cannot stay focused on solving for short-term problems or challenges. It is with an eye for creating pathways and runways for them to be able to move through their full potential and to self-actualize. It's also about being able to see a client's potential, not just sticking them in the first job that you can, right? But seeing their potential. Take a look at this, best jobs of the future. These are jobs that are currently exist that will continue to grow through 2030. So how is the work that you're doing or the connections that you're making for them, how is it creating an environment that enables them to scale up the pyramid? Or do they simply keep them moving from one opportunity to the next in this space? If you look down at the bottom, this is from the World Economic Forum. This is a projection by 2025 of what jobs will decline. And many of the jobs, if you look at the bottom of that slide, many of those jobs are jobs that your clients may assume a lot of them are lower level positions. And if you take some time to take a look at those jobs, those are going away. Why? We need fewer of them. AI and automation can replace some of those functions. The new jobs, if you take a look at the list, they're a little more, they require a higher level of digital fluency and AI fluency. And they're not like that, they're high level positions. This will normalize by 2030. You also need to focus on creating opportunities for your clients to develop the right skills. I use this image all the time. Doesn't matter what job, as organizations condense, combine departments, leverage AI, utilize AI to remove tasks from jobs to make them more efficient, add more value to the role, those jobs become reimagined and require a different set of skills. So it doesn't matter if you're an accountant or an HR person, or if you are a logistics and distribution manager. Everyone needs the skills. They're broken down into 4 categories. So if we go back to preparing clients to thrive, what are we doing to not stay stuck at the bottom of the pyramid and to create pathways that allow them to flourish and thrive? You also need to be aware of how the job search process is changing and the role that artificial intelligence is playing in that process. So many of the jobs that you may place your clients in, let's say a lot of them are entry level, let's say they may be, they may fall into categories. They may fall into low level administrative, retail, fast food roles. So not only are those roles reducing, we're still going to be able to walk into a brick and mortar, right? We're not saying that all of them are going away, but fewer people. What else? Most organizations from Walmart to AT&T have decided that they're not going to use human HR folks to recruit for these jobs. They'd rather deploy them to recruit for higher level positions. So these lower level positions are being relegated to an assessment and evaluation process that's grounded in AI. So they may, for an example, I use this example. One of my clients told me about a customer service position in, I think the company was AT&T. This was back in 2020, and how difficult it was to get through it. And I said, well, let me try it. I've got a couple of master's degrees, lots of experience, doctorate, study this stuff, live, breathe this stuff all the time. I couldn't pass it. Did you hear me? So there are platforms, Pymetrics, check it out, Pymetrics. We are moving more towards neuroscience-based assessments for candidates to see not only if they have the skills, qualifications to meet the job, but what if they will fit, if they'll have the propensity to be engaged. With me on that? The interview process, there are platforms like HireVue. HireVue is one of the most prolific in the marketplace. Video-based interviews, they're on demand. If you pass the assessment, you move on to the next level. The next level is complete this video interview for us. So the candidate logs in, and there are preloaded questions, anywhere from 8 to 15 questions. You've got 3 minutes to answer. If you mess up and you feel a little uncertain, you can start over. You get 3 times to start over. Yeah. It is using biometric analysis, which is facial amount analysis, voice analysis, the inflection in your voice, the energy, the cadence in your voice, because what? All of that ties to that E word, engagement, energy and engagement, right? So it's not just about answering the questions, it's about how you answer them and how you show up. You've got to teach them how to show up on camera. You've got to teach them how they are literally, everyone, I tell all of my clients, you are literally actors and actresses, period, when it's time to apply for jobs in these platforms. So they've got to develop the skills for that. And you've also got to prepare them to work in the metaverse as work moves in that direction. And so I go back to the pyramid. If we're talking about creating opportunities for clients and moving them from surviving to thriving, it is with an eye for the top of the pyramid that you engage with each client and partner. All right, next slide, please. Why do you need to know? Why do we care about this? The composition of the workplace is also changing. Check this out. By 2025, 75% of the workforce will be comprised of millennials and Gen Z. That means that a lot of Gen Xers like me will either be out or on our way out. By 2030, 80% of the workforce will be comprised of millennials, Gen Z, and Gen A, which are the alphas coming right up underneath them. Next slide. Many of these will become your clients. So it is important for you, if we talk about preparing them to thrive, you've got to understand what it is that they want. You've got to understand what their attitudes and perspectives are about work. They are not necessarily a mirror of ours. And so you have to invest in understanding these generations. Just a couple of quotes. Millennials, 90% of them, what gets them excited about work? If there's an opportunity for learning, development, and what? Career growth. Take a look at Gen Z. 53% of them are like, I am really cool with being a freelancer. I know my parents and grandparents told me that I always need to focus on a full-time job. I'm cool with being a freelancer. What else? Work priorities. Keep me safe. And when they talk about safety, it is not just physical safety. It is psychological safety as well. And so understanding the dynamics of how your clients will change and what their perceptions of work are from a generational perspective, and also through the lens of how the Great Resignation has changed perspectives of jobs, can better help you or aid you in the partnerships you develop, in the pathways you develop, and the access that you create for them. The other part too, organizations are moving, I talked about this shift from purpose and social impact. I cannot tell you, this is not a fleeting thing either. Jamie Dimon is the president of course, CEO of Chase Bank, but he's also the chairman of the Business Roundtable, which is like the God voice for all of the largest companies in the country. And in 2019, right before the pandemic, they came out and reimagined the purpose of a corporation. So this set the stage for them to say, okay, listen, we've got to shift business. We have to shift from a shareholder capitalistic model to a stakeholder model. The current model is not sustainable. And so we've got to shift our focus, not just, it doesn't shift away from profits. Profits are still important, but look at the last two columns. Shifting their focus when we talk about purpose and who you want to be as an organization and what impact you want to have. Look at the focus on dignity and equality, health and well-being, and skill development for the future. That is both people internal and external. Prosperity. The focus is on employment, wealth generation, innovation, better products and services, community and social vitality. That is about building up communities. Are you with me? If you were to do a quick Google search on all the companies that invested in communities and people in 2020, in the year 2020, you'll see tons, from UPS to B of A and others. So you'll need to look for these opportunities that emerge, right? As the future continues to unfold, you will need to look for them in new and non-traditional places as you look to solve challenges for your clients and to move them from surviving to thriving. Last slide. I want to leave you with a few takeaways, and that is, I want you to be excited about the future. What I want you to get excited about is that all you have to do is stare it in the face. You have to do some work to prepare you. The work that you're doing is giving you agency. It's giving your teams agency, and it's giving your clients agencies. It is full of possibilities, but you have to lean into it. And you are the architects of the future experiences and the outcomes for both your teams, the organization, and your clients. And the future of work, I want you to hold on to this. The future needs you, and they need you to show up with emotional intelligence, that growth mindset we talked about, and the ability to see the future before it arrives and to connect the dots and make the shifts and pivots that you need. And then last, you can't solve for your whole client if you don't see them. And so the takeaways from today hopefully will help you develop strategies and approaches that help you see your clients and develop opportunities and strategies to help them experience their full potential. One more slide. During the pandemic, I wrote a book. The name of the book is Force Majeure. If all of you know, force majeure is an unforeseen, calamitous, uncontrollable, disruptive event. And I used force majeure as a metaphor for the future of work. And it's all about, it's a guide for helping you move through the future boldly on your terms so that you can thrive. This one quote: for most workers today, the unfolding of the future of work between 2021 and 2030 will be a series of disruptive, unanticipated, and uncontrollable events. It will be their force majeure. So do not let the future of work be your force majeure or materialize into a force majeure for your clients. And I have a secret. I've gifted 25 books, so they will distribute those books for you. If you don't receive one, you can actually go on Amazon and purchase one, but 25 of you will actually get copies of the book. All righty, I'll open for questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Horton. We only have a couple minutes, so if anyone has a quick question, please jump in. I'm not hearing any. Just a couple minutes. I am seeing a lot of thank you, Dr. Horton.
You are very welcome. It is my pleasure. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I post multiple times, actually several times a day, but a lot of content around the future of work. I'm at the maximum number of connections. I'm at over 30,000 is the maximum, so I can't accept any more connections. But feel free to follow and grab any of the information that I post that may inspire you or help you in this journey.
Thank you so much for all of the great information and inspiration. And clearly there's a lot of opportunity for training, education, skill development, capacity building, employment, if we just are able to pivot and embrace that. Thank you so much for your
My pleasure.
message. Really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to Patrick to close us out for today.
Thanks, Julie. We did it, folks. Third day in the books. All right. So first off, just a real big thank you, of course, to our many fantastic speakers today. I think information that was super informative and inspirational. And also a big thank you to our two wonderful contractors, BLH and ICF, for their fantastic assistance in, I think, both planning and putting together this meeting. So thank you guys, very much appreciated. Okay, for the final time, if you would, please take a moment and complete the evaluation. And that should be popping up here in a second now. And let's see, I'm sure folks are wondering, we do plan on posting materials from this meeting as soon as possible. Don't have a specific date in mind, but again, it'll be ASAP. And as always, those resources will be housed on the PeerTA website. So again, I mean, thanks everyone for being on, for being present, for asking great questions, for sharing your knowledge and expertise. It was a good time. So thanks again and have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye now.
Thank you.